Have you ever wondered if the chapter where a man lives alone might be the most free, the most peaceful, and perhaps the most meaningful part of his life? Maybe you didn't plan for it. Maybe there was a divorce after years of trying to hold it together. Maybe you lost someone you loved more than words could ever say. Or maybe the kids are grown now. The house is quiet, and for the first time in decades, there's just you. At first, it feels strange. The silence is louder than the noise ever was. Dinner for one, lights out when you choose. Holidays feel different. Even your footsteps sound unfamiliar. There's a sense of loss, of something missing, and it can feel heavy. But sometimes, in the middle of that silence, something else appears. Not loneliness, but clarity, not sorrow, but space, and slowly, without asking permission. The man who spent years putting others first begins to return to himself. In this video, we're going to explore 9 honest, deeply felt benefits of living alone as an older man. This isn't a list of hollow advice or empty inspiration. It's a reflection gathered from real lives, real moments, and the quiet strength that comes from choosing to live fully, even when you live alone. If you've ever looked around your home and wondered whether this stage of life is just an ending, or if maybe it's a beginning in disguise, then stay with me. Because what you're about to hear might help you see your own solitude in a whole new way. Benefit number 1, true freedom. No one to ask, no one to please. There's a kind of freedom that only makes sense after 60. It's not loud, it doesn't come with fireworks or grand gestures. It comes in quiet moments, when you realize you don't have to ask anyone before deciding what kind of day you want to have. You wake up when your body says it's ready. You make coffee without needing to make small talk. You leave the dishes in the sink because no one's coming over. And honestly, you'll get to them later. There's no one asking what's for dinner. No one commenting on your schedule. No one needing you to be anywhere but where you are. Richard, a retired math teacher, told me something I've never forgotten. After his divorce, he moved into a small apartment on the edge of town. The first night alone, he said it felt like the walls were too close, too quiet, but by the end of the first week, he found himself sketching again, playing music he hadn't played in years, even dancing a little in the living room when no one was watching. I didn't know how much of myself I had packed away, he said. Now, I can hear myself think, I can hear myself live. Living alone gives you that. It gives you room to be who you are without having to fit into someone else's rhythm. It lets you slow down or speed up without checking in. You start building your days around what matters to you, not out of obligation, not from routine, but from choice. And it's not about being selfish, it's about being real. About remembering that your time still belongs to you. That your preferences, your little rituals, your way of moving through the day, they matter. After a lifetime of caring, adjusting, accommodating, and giving, this kind of freedom isn't indulgence. It's healing. It's honest. It's earned. And maybe for the first time, you get to live not as someone's partner or parent or provider, but just as yourself. No one to ask, no one to please, just you. Finally, being enough. Benefit number 2, quiet heals what chaos damaged. When the noise fades, something else begins. At first, the quiet can feel unsettling, too still, too sharp, too full of memories. But if you sit with it long enough, if you stop trying to fill it with television or talk or to-do lists, that quiet starts to change. It stops echoing with loss and begins to settle like warm sunlight through a window. After years of raising a family, working full-time, and sharing space with others, most men forget what true silence even sounds like. Not the silence of being ignored, but the kind that asks nothing from you, the kind that holds you. Samuel, 73, spent most of his life in a busy household. Kids running through the hallways, dinners full of voices and opinions. Then his wife passed, the children moved out, and he found himself alone in the mornings. At first, he filled the air with noise, news on the radio, music in every room. But one morning, he didn't turn anything on. He just sat, coffee in hand, watching the steam rise and fall in the cold light of early day. It felt like the first time in years I could hear myself think, he told me. And I realized I wasn't broken. I was just tired, and silence is where I started to mend. Quiet gives the nervous system a chance to breathe. The body slows, the pulse settles. Thoughts find their way back to center. You begin to notice small things again. The rustle of leaves, the creak of wood, the way your breath feels on a cold morning. These aren't distractions, they're invitations. They remind you that you're still here, still alive, still capable of being moved by simple beauty. You don't need to escape the quiet, you need to listen to it. Let it hold you. Let it become the space where grief can breathe, where regrets can soften, where the pace of your life can finally match the rhythm of your soul. Because when you stop running from silence, you might find that it's not empty at all. It's full of everything you've been too busy to feel. What's one word that describes the peace you found in quiet moments? Share silence in the comments below to let us know. Your story could inspire someone else to embrace their own stillness. If this resonates, please subscribe to join our community of wisdom and reflection. Benefit number 3, your home, your rules, total control over your space. There's something deeply comforting about walking into a space that feels entirely yours. No compromises, no negotiations, no silent tension over what goes where or how things should be. Just a quiet certainty. This is my home, and I belong in it. For many older men, this is the first time in decades they've had full say over their living space. It's not about expensive furniture or perfect decor. It's about meaning. It's about being surrounded by the things that reflect who you are, not who you had to be. Leo, 70, moved into a modest 2-room house after his wife passed. He didn't have much, but he had freedom. He turned one wall into a memory wall. Photos from his time in the Navy, his kids as toddlers, his favorite fishing trip. He placed a worn recliner by the window, just where the afternoon sun hits. A small radio played old country tunes. No one else would decorate like this. He smiled. But everything in here makes sense to me. That's the beauty of it. You're no longer trying to impress anyone or keep up with expectations. You're creating comfort, not performance. And in doing so, you reclaim something that often goes missing as we age, a sense of ownership over your life. Research has shown that having control over your environment, no matter how small, can improve mental health, reduce anxiety, and even slow cognitive decline. But more than that, it just feels good. Choosing what you see when you wake up, what chair you sit in when you read, what smell lingers in your kitchen. These small decisions whisper something powerful. You still matter here. So hang the photos you love. Keep the books you actually read. Cook what you enjoy, even if it's the same meal 3 nights in a row. Your home should feel like a warm, familiar handshake every time you walk through the door. Because after a life of bending to others, meeting needs, compromising dreams, this space, this home, is where you finally get to say, without hesitation, this is me. Benefit number 4, rediscovering yourself. Who are you when no one's watching? There's a strange silence that settles in after the roles fall away. No more rushing to meetings. No one calling you dad from the hallway. No one asking, what's for dinner? You sit in a chair you chose, at a time that no one scheduled, and suddenly, you're just you. Not the father, not the husband, not the provider, just a man, breathing, thinking, being. And the question slowly rises. Who am I now? For many men, that question used to get buried under responsibility. You became what others needed you to be, sometimes beautifully, sometimes out of pure survival. But when life quiets, when it's just your voice in the room, there's space to wonder again. What do I enjoy? What do I care about? What makes me feel alive? Not useful, not dutiful, but alive. Thomas, 65, spent most of his working life as an engineer. He was meticulous, always on time, always dependable, but after retirement and a quiet divorce, he found himself in a one-bedroom apartment with no meetings, no plans, no one to look after. For weeks, he didn't know what to do. Then one evening, he picked up a book on philosophy that had been sitting on his shelf for years. He read it slowly, then he started journaling. He bought a used camera and began photographing the river at dawn. I don't know if it's art, he said, but I finally feel like I'm seeing the world again. And maybe for the first time, I'm starting to see me too. Living alone gives you that mirror, quiet but honest. It invites you to remember what you once loved, to explore what still calls to you, and to try things without judgment or performance. No one's watching, no one's grading. It's just you, learning to be with yourself again. You may not find answers right away. That's okay. The process is the point. You're not reinventing yourself. You're uncovering what's always been there, waiting. That slow return to the man beneath the rolls, and that rediscovery. That might just be the most sacred journey of all. What's one number that represents a passion you're rediscovering? Maybe the years since you last tried it. Comment discovery below to share your journey. Your spark could light the way for others finding themselves again. Please subscribe to stay connected with stories of growth and renewal. Benefit number 5, financial freedom. Lighter, simpler, and truly yours. There's a certain relief that comes when the weight of financial obligation finally begins to ease. For decades, your income may have stretched in every direction: mortgages, tuition, repairs, family needs, unexpected emergencies. You made it work, often with quiet sacrifice, but now, living alone, something shifts. The pace slows, the demands soften, and your money, what you have, what you've saved, what you choose to spend, it finally feels like it belongs to you. Financial freedom at this stage isn't about luxury, it's about clarity. You begin to see what truly matters and what doesn't. The big house that once held a family, maybe now it's just rooms you no longer need to fill. Downsizing isn't giving up, it's letting go of the noise. Letting go of what no longer fits your life. And in that simplicity, you gain something deeper: agency. You decide where the money goes. Maybe it's a quiet vacation, a new hobby, a comfortable chair you've always wanted. Maybe it's just knowing that the bills are paid and the fridge is full, and no one's depending on you to carry them anymore. You learn to live with less, not from lack, but from wisdom. You stop chasing and start choosing. You're no longer spending to impress, or to keep up, or to maintain appearances. You're spending for comfort, for peace, for joy, and perhaps for the first time, you spend without guilt. You no longer ask, will they be okay, before buying something simple for yourself? You no longer feel the quiet sting of putting your needs last. Now your choices reflect your values, not survival, not status, but something quieter, something more honest. Living alone won't erase every financial worry, but it clears the noise. It helps you see what truly serves your life. And in that space, money stops being just a tool to get through the month. It becomes a way to care for yourself, on your terms, at your pace. It's not about having more. It's about finally using what you have in a way that makes you feel whole. Benefit number 6, better mental health. No more expectations, just peace. There's a kind of stress that settles in so gradually, you almost forget it's there. The pressure to keep everyone happy, the tension of holding things together, the constant feeling that your time, your energy, even your emotions belong to someone else. And then one day, you wake up in a space that's quiet. No one's waiting on you. No one's measuring your worth by what you've done today. You walk through your morning at your own pace. The coffee tastes stronger. The sunlight feels softer. You exhale without realizing you've been holding your breath for years. That's what peace can feel like. Not dramatic, not distant, just present. When you live alone, the expectations fall away. You're no longer shaping your moods, or your decisions around someone else's needs. And in that freedom, your mind begins to soften. The constant noise of performance fades. The old pressure to explain yourself, justify your choices, or meet unspoken demands, it's just gone. Mental health in older age doesn't come from isolation. It comes from relief. Relief from the roles you carried for decades. Relief from being everything to everyone. And in that relief, your nervous system starts to reset. You find yourself sleeping deeper, worrying less, feeling more rooted in your body, more at ease in your thoughts. Simple habits, like a daily walk, a few quiet minutes with your breath, or sitting by the window with a warm drink, become medicine. Not because they fix everything, but because they remind you that calm is possible. That this version of life doesn't have to be lived in defense, it can be lived in rhythm. And yes, there are moments of loneliness. That's real. But loneliness isn't the opposite of peace. Sometimes they arrive together. And with time, even that ache becomes softer because it isn't sharpened by resentment or noise or emotional weight. It's just a quiet reminder that you're human, still feeling, still here. Living alone doesn't solve everything, but it creates space. And sometimes, space is exactly what the heart needs to begin healing. What's one word that captures the calm you're seeking in this season of life? Drop peace in the comments to share your thoughts. Your voice matters and could comfort someone feeling the same. We'd be honored if you'd subscribe to explore more moments of healing together. Benefit number 7. Relationships become deeper, less often, more meaningful. Something unexpected happens when you begin spending more time alone. You start to value connection differently. Not by how often it happens or how long the conversations last, but by the feeling it leaves behind. When you're not surrounded by people every day, you begin to notice who truly matters. And when they reach out, it doesn't feel like obligation. It feels like grace. The truth is, when you live alone, the noise of surface-level relationships begins to fade. You're no longer making small talk out of habit or sitting through visits that drain more than they give. You stop chasing closeness, and instead, you begin to receive it as a gift, not a demand. A phone call becomes something to look forward to. A lunch visit with a grown child carries more weight. Even a handwritten letter or a simple thinking of you message can linger in your heart for days. Because now, when people show up, it's intentional. It's chosen. It's love without schedule. Living alone also shifts something inside you. You no longer feel pulled in a dozen emotional directions. You have the space to listen more carefully, to speak more honestly, to be fully present when someone opens their heart. And when you speak, it's not just words. It's reflection, it's memory, it's care, unhurried. Some people might think that living alone leads to isolation. But in many ways, it leads to refinement. You begin to let go of relationships that were built on duty, and you lean into the ones rooted in truth. And while you may not see people every day, when you do, it means something. The absence between visits makes the moments richer. The time apart builds appreciation. And you start to realize you don't need a crowd to feel connected. Just a few hearts that still make space for yours. And maybe that's what deep relationship really is. Not constant presence, but shared meaning across the quiet spaces in between. Benefit number 8, confidence and self-reliance return, like in your 20s, but wiser. Something surprising happens when you start doing things on your own again. At first, it may feel unfamiliar, even frustrating. You fumble with a stubborn jar lid. You figure out how to reset the Wi-Fi. You learn how to manage your medications without reminders. But then, quietly and steadily, you notice something else rising beneath the surface. Confidence. Not the kind you had in your youth. Loud, bold, full of energy, but something deeper, steadier, wiser. Living alone invites you to depend on yourself again. Not because you have to prove anything, but because you're capable. And every small act becomes a reminder of that truth. Fixing the sink, organizing your bills, making your own dinner exactly the way you like it. There's pride in those moments, not because they're impressive, but because they're yours. And in doing those things, you begin to trust yourself again. You remember that you've been through worse, that you've solved harder problems, that no matter what your body feels like today, your spirit still knows how to stand on its own 2 feet. There's also something quietly powerful about becoming your own advocate. You ask questions at the doctor's office. You manage your own calendar. You decide when you want help and when you'd rather try it yourself. And that decision, even when it leads to trial and error, becomes its own kind of strength. You're not who you were at 20, and that's the point. Because now you do things not to prove you can, but because you know you still can. You've earned your independence. You've earned your rhythm. And every time you navigate life alone, you reclaim something that was never lost, just tucked away beneath years of caring for everyone else. Living alone doesn't mean you have to do everything alone. But when you do, and when you choose to, it reminds you of who you are. Capable, grounded, still learning, still growing, still standing strong. What's one number that reflects a small victory you've achieved on your own recently? Comment strength below to celebrate your resilience. Your courage could encourage someone else to keep going. Benefit number 9, joy in the simple things. When ordinary moments become magic. As life slows down, something beautiful happens. What once felt ordinary begins to shimmer. You start to notice the gentle warmth of the morning sun slipping across your table. The way steam curls from your teacup, the quiet rustle of leaves outside your window, and suddenly in the small things, feel holy. When you live alone, you're not rushing from one thing to the next. You're not caught in someone else's timeline. You move through your day with a softness that opens your eyes to moments you used to miss. And those moments, those tiny, quiet, beautiful things, begin to feel like enough. Joy no longer comes from achievement. It comes from presence. From the feel of soil in your hands while tending a plant. From the slow turning of a well-worn book. From the familiar sound of rain tapping on your rooftop at night. These are not grand gestures. They are not milestones, but they are yours. And that's what makes them powerful, because they aren't borrowed. They aren't filtered through someone else's need or urgency. They arrive quietly and ask only that you notice, that you be there for them. You begin to realize you don't need noise to feel alive. You don't need applause to feel proud. You don't need a full house to feel connected. Sometimes, just being there, with yourself, in peace is enough to fill your heart. Joy at this stage is not the fireworks of youth. It's the candlelight of presence, and it burns steady when you learn how to sit still enough to see it. Final reflection. Now that we've walked through these 9 quiet gifts of living alone, take a moment to look around your own space. Not with criticism, not with longing, but with presence. What does it reflect back to you? Does it feel like a place where you live or just a place where you sleep? It's easy to overlook the habits that have followed us for years, to dismiss the chair that no longer supports our back, to ignore the silence we've never made peace with, to put off the little changes that could make this chapter not just bearable, but beautiful. You don't need to change everything. Maybe it's moving a chair closer to the sunlight. Maybe it's leaving your favorite book open by the bed. Maybe it's finally playing that old record you loved in your 30s and letting it fill the room again. Living alone isn't a failure. It isn't an end. It's a different kind of freedom, a different kind of strength. And in that space, you get to decide what matters now, what brings comfort, what brings life. Because you've worked hard to build this life, to survive heartbreak, to raise others, to show up again and again, even when no one noticed. Don't let these years slip by in autopilot. Don't let the quiet be wasted. Let it nourish you. Let it remind you that you're still here, still choosing, still growing. And maybe tonight, instead of filling the silence, you'll sit with it. Maybe you'll light a small candle, open the window, breathe a little slower, and feel, even for a moment, the quiet strength of being exactly where you are. Let us know in the comments, what's one small change you'll make this week to bring more comfort, meaning, or peace into your living space? And if this video gave you something to think about, we hope you'll like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear this. Because sometimes the simplest message, shared at the right time, can change someone's whole day, maybe even their life.